Well, here to talk about it is the person who is most qualified on this topic, Toby Young, General Secretary of the Free Speech Union. Good morning, Toby. When you listen to that sequence of events there surrounding the death, luckily, the injury to Sir Salman Rushdie and J.K. Rowling's response and the Twitter, just tell me, first of all, what are your feelings when you hear that events?
Well, I was horrified by the news that Salman Rushdie had been attacked on stage, stabbed multiple times, including in the face, had to be airlifted to hospital where he was put on a ventilator. I think he's off the ventilator now, but he's still in hospital. It was absolutely horrifying. It was an attack not just on Salman Rushdie's freedom of expression, but all of our right to freedom of expression. And I think every writer, every author should have unequivocally condemned the attack and made common cause with Salman Rushdie. But Joanne Harris, instead of focusing on that, seems to have become embroiled in this spat with J.K. Rowling, a spat, I have to say, entirely of Joanne Harris's making, in which she mocked J.K. Rowling, as you've just said, for claiming she'd received a death threat when it was as plain as it could be, as plain as day, that she had in fact received a death threat. And it was ridiculous that Twitter didn't remove it until this morning. And, you know, the Society of Authors is a trade union for authors, illustrators, translators. You know, it's their job to stand up for writers who receive death threats like J.K. Rowling, but instead she mocked her. And that is, I'm afraid, in keeping with Joanne Harris's rather ambivalent relationship with free speech. She's failed to defend numerous gender-critical authors who are at odds with trans rights activists, not just J.K. Rowling, but also Gillian Phillip, a member of the Free Speech Union, who we're supporting. Gillian lost her job as a writer. She was sacked because she expressed her solidarity with J.K. Rowling. We haven't had a squeak from Joanne Harris defending Gillian Phillips's right to free speech. In the past, Joanne Harris has said that she thinks cancel culture is a good thing. It's a good way of dispensing with things that are out of date, no longer in fashion, that we now disapprove of. And that's one of the reasons she hasn't come to the defense of any of these beleaguered authors. So, you know, her track record when it comes to defending authors under fire and defending free speech more generally is pitiful. And I really don't understand why she's leading this trade union.
I have to say, obviously, Joanne Harris isn't here to defend herself. We would very much welcome her on GBNews anytime if she wanted to come and give her version of events and what did motivate her to put that Twitter poll out there. But on a broader level, Toby, what does this tell us about where we are at the moment in 2022 in terms of free speech? We've got the online harm safety bill, which seems to be going ahead, and then it gets cancelled, it goes ahead again, it gets revised. I feel like we're at, a turning point. We're at a precipice, aren't we? Whereas everything that happens from this point onwards could be incredibly important for future generations who should be able to express themselves freely, even if people don't like what they have to say.
Absolutely. As you say, the online safety bill, I think, poses the greatest threat to free speech of our generation. But there are other threats as well. The Law Commission of England and Wales has recommended extending the number of protected categories. At the moment, you can be prosecuted for stirring up hatred against people on racial grounds, religious grounds, or grounds of sexual orientation. But the Law Commission of England and Wales, a highly influential body, has suggested vastly increasing the number of categories of people you can be prosecuted for saying something hateful about. I mean, that's one of the difficulties with hate speech law. It's constantly expanding. That's the nature of the beast. There are just more and more things we can't say. If we had a First Amendment in this country, like they do in America, we wouldn't have any hate speech laws. That's why they don't have any hate speech laws in the United States, but we don't have a First Amendment. And one of the reasons I think free speech is in such jeopardy is that we've imported these censorious, authoritarian, woke culture that sprung up in the United States in the past 10 to 15 years. But it's much more damaging and corrosive in the UK because, unlike in America, we don't have any First Amendment protections. So there are just fewer and fewer things we can say. I mean, I think everyone would accept that there are things we could say 10 years ago that we can't say now. Even if you say them on WhatsApp, you know, in a private conversation with one other person, you can still get into trouble. We looked after someone at the Free Speech Union who got into trouble for precisely that, a one-on-one private conversation on WhatsApp. So, you know, it's just reaching a ridiculous extent, and we really need to fight back and defend free speech. And I'm hoping that if Liz Truss does win the Conservative leadership, she makes a real point of standing up for free speech. She ditches the worst aspects of the online safety bill. She sees off the Law Commission's attempt to create new hate speech laws in the United Kingdom. And she really does a decent job of standing up for free speech. And I hope that she's asked about that in the GBNews hustings later today.